Best teaching practices. Number 1. Provide frequent and timely feedback. What makes feedback effective? Feedback needs to be specific so students can fully understand what the teachers are asking of them and are fully equipped with the knowledge of how they can improve. If feedback is vague and non-specific, it can in fact have the opposite desired effect, to motivate and improve understanding, and can actually lead to students becoming frustrated, unmotivated, and unable to apply notes to their work to improve. Although, providing written responses and annotating students' work is a sound way to communicate feedback, it does take time. One of the great things about giving direction and communicating areas for improvement is that this can be done verbally. For example, if your entire class is struggling on a particular area, this can be addressed to the whole class as opposed to feeding back to multiple students individually. Timely feedback ensures that nothing is lost, that students can still apply what they've learned and take on board suggestions to improve their greater understanding of a topic. Furthermore, receiving positive feedback is what can motivate our students to continue working hard and applying knowledge they have learned to their work. Praise and positive feedback are in fact one of the same thing and don't necessarily need to be done in a formal manner. It can be as simple as saying, "Well done" or "Great job," either when students answer a question right or when completing a task. These simple acts can give students the drive to continue working hard and apply themselves. Number 2. Value parental or familial involvement. Parental involvement not only enhances academic performance, but it also has a positive influence on students' attitude and behavior. A parent's interest and encouragement in a child's education can affect the child's attitude towards school, classroom conduct, self-esteem, absenteeism, and motivation. Parental involvement can make a positive difference at all age levels. Parental involvement tends to be the greatest with young children and tends to taper off as children get older. A child may consider going to school more seriously when parents show interest in the child's academic achievements and talk with the child about the benefits of a college education. Becoming involved in the children's education, moms and dads get the satisfaction of making a contribution to their children's education and future. They have a better understanding of the school curriculum and activities and can be more comfortable with the quality of education their child is receiving. They spend more time with their children and becoming able to communicate better with them. Some studies show that parents' participation in a child's education may inspire the parent to further his or her own education.
Best teaching practices number 3. Sidestep the comfort zone. I think as teachers, we get in our comfort zone but still want to push students out of theirs. It's an understandable tendency. In the classroom, students obviously have a lot of opportunities to form impressions. As teachers, we all want to build relationships and help students succeed. But what's the best way? Innovations and new strategies are occurring all the time. This doesn't mean that every bandwagon should be boarded, but in trying something new and unfamiliar, teachers can find additional ways to impact students, and students can see an exemplar of risk-taking. Working with them outside your norm will help you grow as an educator, and imprinting the importance of education of the students you help. Again, think back to your learning experiences. While you may have avoided certain teaching subjects because you weren't comfortable with them, you still passed these core subjects. That means you still have the capacity to remember and refresh your knowledge in those areas. Simply put, it was possible for you then, and it is possible for you now. For For instance, when your student approaches you for help about a task on a certain subject that he or she is struggling, too often teachers like to say, "I don't teach that. There's a reason why I can't help you." Unfortunately, such statement send the wrong message to student and the importance of all areas in learning, hinting that those other subjects are of no use to students in the future. The key is creating a positive mind. Start outside your comfort zone, go cross-curricular, and get in the trenches to help students with other subject areas by not just concentrating on your own area of expertise. You show students that you believe in and support them, care for them as a whole, and are not only interested in what they are doing in your class. In that way, you will be inspiring people or learners around you, and you will realize that the only way to success leads through discomfort. Best teaching practices number 4. Offer second chances or clean slates. Rather than focusing on what we can change from the past, let the focus be on making the best future. Some students push limits, but when they are in your presence, they should be getting the best and positive version of you. Students are the reflection of their teacher. Maybe we all have this kind of situation like, "Teacher, I studied so hard but didn't do very well in the test. Is there everything we can do?" Student behavior improvement programs should be about giving everyone, even students who mess up a lot, a new opportunity, a second chance each day to do something good. If a lesson doesn't go as planned, we redo it or teach it again. If we have a bad day, we go back, we fix it, and then move forward. Every single day, we get to learn from our mistakes or failures. We just need to be reminded that everything is a learning experience. Allow your students to fix everything they handed in. Stupid mistakes became teaching moments. Sloppy work was enhanced, and gaps of knowledge were filled in. But what it taught the learners was invaluable perseverance, dedication, and not being afraid to try something new. Give your students that test and tell them to fix it. Give them back their work and tell them to enhance it. Give them another chance to learn. It takes incredible patience and takes some serious willpower to not get flustered. According to Luke 6 verse 40, a student is not greater than his teacher, but a student who is fully trained will be like his teacher. Best teaching practices number 5. Be resourceful. Whether this means thinking outside of the box for procuring supplies or adding a little DIY spin to what seemed to be an unattainable resource, teachers can always seem to find a way to get it done. Teachers' resourcefulness as a key to improving the use of instructional materials in teaching and learning is a way of upgrading the teacher's knowledge of using visual aids in teaching and improvising some of the aids. Teacher resourcefulness is operationally conceptualized in terms of the teacher to utilize the appropriate language, method, and available instructional materials to bring the best results from the learners. Teachers are said to be resourceful if they are able to apply all the requisite skills, competencies, and abilities to maximize learning outcomes and achievements, such that the results are observable in practical terms through the behavior and performance of the learner. In other words, the resourcefulness of the teacher is measured by his products. Teacher's resourcefulness certainly affects learning outcomes. Very resourceful teachers are considered to be more able to use the most appropriate methods and materials to teach pupils, as they differ in the abilities, prior knowledge, and home backgrounds. Indeed, Different levels of teachers' effectiveness are byproducts of their resourcefulness and strong determinants of differences in pupils' learning. Humility and flexibility are some of the competencies of a resourceful teacher. So, it will help the teacher to accept corrections from other colleagues when necessary, especially in this era of technology where everything is going computerized. It will help him to adjust faster and better. The resourceful teacher keep open mind, value all kinds of different students, be respectful of different thoughts, views, and suggestions, and be open to considering new ideas.
So you know the first to fifth best teaching practices. So let's proceed to the sixth one. Hi, my name is Trixie Bacco, and I'll be discussing to you the 6 to 7 best teaching practices. So, number 6 is making learning advocate. Students are going to find more impactful takeaways from doing rather than simply listening or viewing. Offer opportunities for students to be actively engaged in their learning journeys. Active learning methods ask students to fully participate in their learning by thinking, discussing, investigating, and creating. In active learning classrooms, students may be asked to practice skills, solve problems, struggle with complex questions, propose solutions, and explain ideas in their own words through writing and discussion. Research indicates that active learning methods are especially effective for student learning when compared to classes that primarily consist of learning. These are the examples of active learning. First, reinforces important material, concepts, and skills. Second, provides more frequent and immediate feedback to students. Third, provides students with an opportunity to think about, talk about, and process course material. Fourth, creates personal connections to the material for students, which increases their motivation to learn. Fifth, allows students to practice important skills such as collaboration through pair and group tasks. Sixth, builds self-esteem through conversation with other students. And lastly, the seventh one, creates a sense of community in the classroom through increased student to student and instructor to student interaction. The seventh one of the best teaching practices is be an advocate. This is twofold, meaning teachers need to advocate for themselves and for their students. This can involve advocating for supplies, services, training, and etc. Every child deserves to have someone who believes in them. An adult who facilitates their success demands that they do their best and ultimately never gives up on them. Well, as a future educator, we are well placed to be that person for your students. Teachers are in a unique position to both identify and understand the individual needs of the students and their care. With this knowledge, they can advocate for their students and the specific needs required in order to thrive. The best way to understand your students is to listen to them. Good advocates use effective listening strategies, maintain eye contact, give frequent nonverbal feedback, and wait for a pause to ask clarifying questions. Finding out your students' talents, interests, needs, and goals will give you the important information necessary to advocate for them. It is also shows them you care about their well-being and success. Try to see things from your students' perspective so you can act in their best interest. Remain sensitive to their feelings and do what's right for them as an individual. Advocating for students doesn't stop at the schoolyard gates sometimes. Doing what's best for our students means stepping out of our comfort zones and engaging the public and other stakeholders. In order to make your students' stories heard, you may need to elevate them. Jane Arcelia will explaining the best teaching practices.
The next best teaching practices is pursue lifelong learning. Lifelong learning is a form of self-initiated education that is focused on personal development. While there is no standardized definition of lifelong learning, it has generally been taken to refer to the learning that occurs outside of a formal educational institute, such as a school, university, or corporate training. Lifelong learning does not necessarily have to restrict itself to informal learning. However, it is best described as being voluntary with the purpose of achieving personal fulfillment. The means to achieve this could result in informal and formal education. What is the importance of lifelong learning? Whether pursuing personal interests and passions or sharing professional ambitions, lifelong learning can help us to achieve personal fulfillment and satisfaction. It recognizes that humans have a natural drive to explore, learn, grow, and encourages us to improve our own quality of life and sense of self-worth by paying attention to the ideas and goals that inspires us. The reality is that most of us have goals or interests outside of our formal schooling and jobs. This is part of what it means to be human. We have a natural curiosity and we are natural learners. We develop and grow thanks to our ability to learn. Lifelong learning recognizes that not all of our learning comes from a classroom. For example, in childhood, we learn to talk or ride a bike. And as an adult, we learn how to use a smartphone or learn how to cook a new dish. These are examples of the everyday lifelong learning we engage in on a daily basis, either through socialization, trial and error, or self-initiated study. Personal fulfillment and development refer to natural interests, curiosity, and motivations that lead us to learn new things. We learn for ourselves, not for someone else. Next, we have encourage discussion. Through discussion, students are exposed to a variety of opinions and ideas that may or may not be similar to their own. Classrooms offer a perfect forum for teaching students to respect others and learn to share information, agree and disagree in a productive and non-threatening fashion. According to Davis in 1993, initiating and sustaining a lively, productive discussion are among the most challenging activities for an instructor. Although the ideal discussion is spontaneous and unpredictable, you will want to do some careful planning. You should have a clear goal or objective for the discussion, a plan for how you will prepare the students, and a general idea about how you will guide the discussion. For example, we have the activities, videos, questions, and etc. Reevaluate your course participation and attendance policies to be certain that they are assessing what you want them to assess, encouraging what you want to encourage, and that there aren't other options that can accomplish the same goals. For instance, if you value the exchange of ideas, does it matter whether this happens face-to-face or online? You can distribute a list of questions for each discussion, ask students to bring in their own questions, suggest key concepts or themes for them to focus on, or ask them to collect evidence that clarifies or refutes a particular concept or problem. Discussions will be more satisfying for you and your students if they are prepared. In order for a discussion to be effective, students need to understand the value of actively listening to their peers, tolerating opposing viewpoints, and being open-minded. They also need to recognize the importance of staying focused and expressing themselves clearly. You might spend the first session with your students exploring the characteristics of effective and ineffective discussions. Allow students to ask questions or share ideas in class anonymously or without speaking out. Circulate note cards for students to write questions or comments or to answer your questions, perhaps anonymously, and collect and address them. You can also encourage students to ask questions in the learning management system, which you can then respond to either face-to-face or online. So the last best teaching practices that we have is to keep a positive outlook. Don't get caught up with the naysayers when this negative attitude trickles over to the students. It can have detrimental effects on the learning environment as a whole. Be mindful and always remember that adding a positive spin to necessary or mundane tasks goes a long way. A positive attitude helps you cope more easily with the daily affairs of life. It brings optimism into your life and makes it easier to avoid worries and negative thinking. If you adopt it as a way of life, it will bring constructive changes into your life and makes them happier, brighter, and more successful. A positive attitude leads to happiness and success and can change your whole life. If you look at the bright side of life, your life becomes more filled with light. This light affects not only you, but also your students and the way you look at the world. But it also affects your environment and the people around you. If this attitude is strong enough, it becomes contagious. It's as if you radiate light around you. That would be all. Thank you.